Welcome back to another episode of Shaking Boxes, the series where I shake a box and find out what's inside it. Yep, there's a Mirage in there. Hi, I'm Matt and you're watching Model Minutes. So today's video I'm taking a look inside the box of the Mirage IIIC in 1/48 scale from Academy. Join me in this video as I find out what's inside here and if it's any good. So on the front of the box we've got a very striking image of two Mirage aircraft in a formation, and it's quite a colourful image and you can see lots of things that are going on in the background. Up here at the top it says that it's got fully engraved panel lines and rivet details, highly detailed cockpit interior and landing gear, and authentic French Air Force marking included. However, you might be able to notice that on the front it hasn't got a French Air Force marking. So let's go into this and hope that it's in there. On the edge of the box here we've got an image of the finished model and some multilingual information. Down here it states that this model is intended for those aged 14 years and older. Flip over to the other side, we've got again another finished image, but also some different angles as well. And as you can see, the person who's built this has done a very nice job of it, and it looks to be quite an attractive model to build. The edges of the box indicate the same information as on the front and purely help to identify it on the shelf. The rear of the box features no information at all. Let's get inside the box and see what's in there. As usual, let's take a look at the paperwork first. So the first thing is this little disclaimer which says that you need to make sure you check the parts before you unbag them, because otherwise you basically void the warranty. Next we've got the instructions, and this is simply an A4 sheet. The paperwork is quite glossy, but as you can see it's all in black and white. The same image as on the box is featured, but we've got some information about the aircraft here. And at the bottom we've got the painting instructions and the decal placement as well, and it's not particularly clear. It calls for natural metal for the paint and a black nose and antenna, so it's up to you what kind of paints that you use for that. You can also see where the decals are supposed to go, but it's not abundantly clear, and it would seem that this is only available in the Israeli Air Force colours. Maybe there'll be some French ones when we get to the decal sheet. Flipping over, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. 6 steps, so it's not going to be a particularly complicated build. We start off by adding the pilot to the cockpit, the front landing gear, and then we progress to adding all of that inside of the aircraft. It does indicate here that you need to add weight inside the nose to stop it from tipping, but how much weight you need to add is anybody's guess, because it's not annotated on here. Moving on to stage 3, we add the wings. Stage 4, we add the rest of the landing gear. Stage 5 is the assembly of the munitions and drop tanks, and 6 is adding that to the model. So it's not going to be a particularly challenging model. It might be suitable for someone who's a beginner, just to get their eye in, and the simple paint scheme of overall silver and black on the nose would be quite easy to complete, particularly if you're going to use spray cans. So let's take a look at the transfers. They come inside their own little bag, and that's it. It's the Israeli Air Force markings. So hang on, I was promised French Air Force markings. Says it on the box, French Air Force, and I haven't got them, I've got Israeli. So if you do go for this kit, make sure you are aware of that it doesn't necessarily come with the decals that you expected. I have heard in various places that Academy don't have the best transfers, and looking at them they seem to be okay. The printing isn't exactly the finest, some of the text on here is not particularly well reproduced, but for the most part the colours seem okay. And I can't see any tears or rips or them peeling away at the moment, but let's see how they go when we come to apply them to the model. A few little bits of paperwork that I've forgotten to mention. We've got some multilingual pictures on how to assemble the model, which will be quite handy if you've never done this before. It just tells you how to snip the various parts from the sprue and also how to cut and apply your decals. And then this nice bright yellow sheet is a warning. It just makes sure that you don't cut yourself whilst using the tools, make sure you identify the correct parts, that sort of thing. Keep the bags away from small children as they're a suffocation hazard. So the part that we're all waiting for, the sprues. The sprues come in 2 clear plastic bags and are moulded in a grey plastic. Let's get them out and have a look. I need scissors. I definitely need scissors. I found my scissors. So let's get inside the bags and take a look. See what it's like. So the first sprue we're looking at holds the underside of the aircraft and various small parts. I do agree with the box artwork where it says that it has fully engraved panel lines. Those are there. They're slightly shallow, but they look to be generally alright. There is a bit of flash in a few places, but the moulding is generally quite crisp and clear. The only thing I would point out on this is that the pilot figure is pretty horrendous. It's just sort of a moulded shape, a moulded lump that sort of represents a pilot figure but doesn't really cut the mustard, especially for a 1/48 scale aircraft. That's a little bit disappointing. But to be honest, everything else on this sprue seems to be done to an alright standard. I guess whoever designed this one was much better at designing parts than people. Onto the top wing surfaces here, again, recessed panel lines where appropriate, and drop tanks and some other internal details. That's the cockpit bit, and then there's your landing gear legs. The landing gear legs feel quite sturdy. They don't appear as if they would buckle under the weight of the aircraft, so that would be quite good. And the plastic on the whole is quite tough. It's got a little bit of flex in it, but it's all right. And it doesn't feel particularly greasy at all, so that's good. You won't necessarily have to wash this one, but as always, it's probably a good idea to do so. Clear parts come in their own little bag. The main fuselage parts come together, and as you can see, this is a reasonably large aircraft. Probably not one of the largest aircraft you can get 1/48 scale, but compared to what I normally do at 1/72, this is quite large. There's no real evidence of flash, so the moulding seems to be quite good on these, and the recessed panel lines are quite well done. Hopefully they will go together quite well. You would notice that there's not particularly much detail on the inside there, but I'm not sure if there would have been much on there anyway in the actual aircraft. The last sprue to look at, the last grey sprue to look at, is some more of the munitions and some of the finer details. You've got the nose probe here, some sort of little winglet type parts, the rear engine cone, and there's a little bit of flash on that which will need removing. But generally the moulding on those parts is quite good. The clear parts, let's take a look at these. So the clear parts are of a reasonable standard. There are some small scratches and blemishes in the plastic where it's been moulded. The plastic is generally quite clear, but on this side here I've got some sort of scratches, and I'll see if I can pick that up on the camera. The canopy lines are reasonably well raised, so these should be quite easy to follow when you come to mask them for painting. And then here you've got the gun sight, but that one's done quite well and should be quite easy to paint with a paintbrush. You might not need to mask that one with tape or anything like that. So clear parts are okay. The 4 grey plastic sprues are to a good quality. However, there is a little bit of flash in places, but the one thing that stood out for me on this one is that the pilot figure is not particularly well represented. I might include him, purely because I don't have a replacement, but I worry that if I exclude him from the aircraft, it will probably attract the fact that although it says there's a detailed cockpit, there doesn't actually appear to be that much detail. And like we looked on the decal sheet, there's no instrument panel decals. And from looking at the parts, there were not that many components that go inside the cockpit. So although it might be a detailed model for the period in which it was designed, it's probably not so detailed now. Having done a little bit of research on scalemates.com, which is a brilliant resource, and I suggest that you take a look at it if you're not familiar with it, it seems that this kit was originally owned and designed by Fujimi in 1968. It has had some new parts added to it over the years, which would explain to me why the pilot does look the way that he does. And this particular version is from 2010-ish. It didn't seem to have a specific date for when this one was manufactured. However, it does appear that there was a version of this kit which did have French decals included, and according to the artwork on that box there would have been a big French roundel up here, but it seems to me that they've omitted that purely probably for cost and not changed the text on the rest of the box. So there are some versions with the French decals and there are some without. As you can see, I paid £8.75 for this, and that's not a particularly expensive price for a 1/48 scale kit, and that's part of the reason why I bought it. That, and I don't really have that many jets in my collection or kits in 1/48 scale, and I thought that this would be an interesting change of pace. In conclusion, you get 4 grey plastic sprues which are moulded to a reasonable quality. You get 1 clear sprue which is okay, it's not too bad. You get a set of decals that seem to be printed to an alright standard, but they're not fantastic, and a set of instruction sheets which are quite simple to follow, but again lacking in detail and could benefit from having been printed in colour. The most misleading thing about this one, I suppose, is the fact that the box promises something that it doesn't provide. But what do you think about this kit? Let me know in the comments below. Is this something that you would get for yourself? As always, honourable mention to my patrons over on Patreon. Massive thank you to you for the support that you give my channel. To find out more about what becoming a patron means and the perks it gets you, including early access to videos, take a look at the links in the description. Other ways that you can follow my work and get into contact with me are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and don't forget that I've got a Discord server with nearly 150 people in it at the moment. And whilst I'm talking about Discord, I'll be building this model kit as part of my Discord group build for vintage sonic booms. So by the time you see this video, I may have already finished it, but make sure you check out my server to find out when the next one will be. All that's left to say is thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the workbench again next time. I need scissors. I definitely need scissors. Or a knife. Where's my scissors? Where are my scissors? Where have I put them? I can't open this, I haven't got any scissors.